adjust. Yeah, so I'll make
quite a bit shorter.
Boop.
Thanks.
How's that?
A little bit higher. That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Boop. Switch. Is that about right?
Sure.
Still, okay.
So I was really sick of hearing the same fluffy fairy tales and decided to write about Snow White in a darker vein. And I had come across a couple of stories and poems that told different fairy tales in different ways. It didn't take me long to realize what I liked about these retellings. They were told in first person instead of by an omniscient narrator, and just by altering the point of view, the stories were made infinitely more relatable. They were unhappy, realistic endings. There's no sunset, no prince, no waking from death with a kiss from your true love. The characters were broken. Instead of feeling lighthearted, I was aching long after I stopped reading. And I get that sorrow and pain are not desirable emotions for most, but I never felt anything after watching Disney's interpretations of these stories. And if something makes that fiery of an imprint, I think you have to give it some credit. By the way, they told me to be funny. I'm not funny. I'm sorry. It's I thought maybe I should tell a knock-knock joke, or I heard a crass joke about Snow White, and then I just decided to just read my poems, so deal. A friend read me a retelling of Snow White by Neil Gaiman that attempted to make the reader more sympathetic to the queen. And apologies to Neil Gaiman, I found it completely ineffective. The idea of innocent, sweet Snow White being something evil was just preposterous, but it made me reconsider. It made me pause. I thought, could she be more human-like, less divine? Which brings me to my third and final similarity. I promise, if the whole thing is not going to be an intro, I will read my poetry. All of the characters in these retellings of classic tales, whether poem or prose, had conflicts and attempts at resolution that were more true to life. The Little Mermaid wanted true love, but her singing seduced sailors into crashing upon the rocks, and they drowned. And she cried, like it wasn't the Little Mermaid singing part of your world. And Beauty wanted the Beast and came to him despite the jeering of the townspeople and the fact that he wasn't actually a prince. He was actually a beast. Frankenstein's monster only felt like a monster, but he was actually a teenage boy with a cutting depth of loneliness. In these stories, love was a dark, uncontrollable thing that wasn't represented by a prince on a white horse that they knew would show up eventually. It was represented by insecurities and mishaps. So here is my poetic retelling of Snow White. I'll begin with this prologue poem called City and include a couple of readings that inspired me, and maybe explain who's speaking in the poem to make them just a little bit easier to follow. So this is called City. I follow the pattern of steam evaporating from beneath the sidewalk. We seek this city fog, misled by seduction of wolf's breath and the underside of green things on certain days. Beetle and bullfrog crawl into our dressers at night, pleading with their sad, strong voices. Come home, come home. We plug our ears and cover our eyes, but our teeth are tethered to the streets. We cannot leave without sacrifice, sticking to our ruined mouths like gossamer. I'm completely okay with you clapping after each poem. Thanks. Thank you. This is the Queen. I don't think I need to tell you anything more. I watch her in the marketplace, touching potatoes with ungloved fingers, opening and closing like orchids. I am not the only one who thinks it is vulgar behavior for a princess. The boys sniff at her heels. The girls lift their eyebrows, but say nothing. Her hair hangs loose, unrefined strands of black oil. Friction from soap will give no flame, no matter how hard I scrub. I help her out of the bath. I am sensible. If her gypsy lips had the eye of every prince, this coterie would please me. But even her father sniffs at such ripe fruit. We braid each other's hair while the other holds the mirror and take turns to stare. I send her to bed without food. She steals from my basket, full of apples from the market. Thank you. So I'm going to pause in my poetry and read something that inspired the next poem. And this was Beauty and the Beast poem by James Alsop, and it's called Beauty and the Beast. And I'm just going to read a part of it, the beginning, part 1, The Beast. I'll read another part of it later when it's more appropriate. Knowing how you loved the birds, I fixed them to the trees so they wouldn't fly away, so you would stay. And you remained silent and never questioned my bloody palms or reproached me the birds because they didn't sing. It couldn't last, of course. No new birds came, and those crucified were taken by small animals or simply disappeared from the nails. I was sure then that you would leave me. So the next poem I wrote is called Come Winter. And, oh no, that's not my poem, you don't have to clap. You can clap for James Aesop if you want. I'll stop if you want to. I'm being unpurposefully funny. Anyway, I was inspired by the birds, and this is in Snow White's voice, and the parenthetical title was In Hiding, so she's hiding from the huntsman. Quote, a bird without a nest grows weary of flight, end quote. I will stay here on this wire, head tucked behind dormant wings, the fragrant claps of August rammed against the cage of my ribs like tear gas. A young girl ties me to the frost-tipped grass with shoestring. She tugs, shaping my lips into a closed protrusion of beak, laughing without mirth. My eyes water. Every protestation, an unflinching mockery of birdsong. I will not sing. If I cannot fly, I will not sing until March. Thank you. Okay, this poem is called Transparent. Parenthetical title is The Huntsman's First Impression. Look at how the vines do not trip you, the bulbs do not rot, the pathetic flowers imitate your scent. Threatening shrieks rain down from the canopy. I worry they will tell of my shortcoming, my colorless sight. The goddamn birds. Rocks leave my hand with uncertain direction. I will strip you of your feathers, lead you of the blackberries you keep in your overcoat pocket, your mouth stained with their juice. Your hair a rack for thorns, slick with dark, a murder of crows like doves dipped in tar. I put my teeth against your skin to check the shade. I know who you are. Thank you. So here's another pause from my heavy poetry. This was a book that inspired me, Serena by Donna Jo Napoli. It's a retelling of The Little Mermaid. And I found it really powerful. It's written for adolescents, but the writing is simple and elegant. So I'm just going to read a part of this that inspired the next poem. I set the bowl carefully beside the man. His lips are parted exactly as they were before. His hand lies with the palm up, as if in offering, exactly as I left it. He has not moved. With one finger, I touch the very center of his palm. I trace a tiny circle. I tap the ball of each fingertip. Heat rushes to my cheeks and ears. But my light touch will not save him. I take the 2 fruits from my tongue and place them in the fresh water. With my hands, I dribble fresh water into the man's mouth. Then I splash more salt water on his wound. His eyelids flutter. He moans. I hurry out into the water and bob in the waves, watching. And this poem is called Trickery. It is the huntsman speaking to Snow White. We both know how it feels to be unearthed. I can more easily pretend to smell of the dirt, but it is in water we roll and snick without eyes, arms wriggling for a deceitful sun. We swim, but mostly sail, sometimes together, peering into the blackened sky. No one can know who is the iceberg and who is the ship, but I will wager with all of my glacial heart, I will weep for your death, if the grip of your insufferable light does not tear me asunder. Thank you. So I just have 2 more poems, and the other book that I was going to read from, the book I'm going to read from, is called The Rose and the Beast, Fairy Tales Retold by Francesca Leah Black. She also writes for adolescents, and her writing is a little lighter, but just as simple. And this is the ending of her retelling of Snow White. It's just entitled Snow. And the huntsman in this story is actually, he's the gardener. And he's come back, and Snow White has just been poisoned by her mother's apples. Let's see. But when he touched her with his mouth and her eyes opened, she did not see him there. She called for the men, the 7 brothers. She wanted them. More than gardeners or mothers, she wanted them the way she needed the earth and the flowers and the sky and the sea from her tower room, and food and sleep and warmth and light and nights by the fire and poetry and the stories of going out into the world and almost being destroyed by it and returning to find comfort and the real meaning of freak. And I am a freak, she thought happily. I am meant to stay here forever. I am loved. She pushed the gardener away and called for them. In her sleep, she had seen love. It was poisoning. It was possessing, devouring. Or it was 7 pairs of boots climbing up the stairs to find her. What I really liked about that was that it was unlikely. I mean, when does Snow White stay with the dwarves, you know? I mean, when is she not totally enchanted by her true love's kiss? So I decided to go with something unsettling. You could feel free to take this as the queen speaking, but I meant it as Snow White speaking. And I think by the end of the poem, you'll kind of get a sense of what happens. Hopefully, that's the idea. The title is Wither. Eyes will not see an unfinished shock of hair. From the crown, stem and bud sprout with speed unlikely. Salamander mouth stretches in weight of breast, swollen, expectant. Fists unfurl like branches the size of my palm. Against my womb, the lines shrive darkly. The sun lies to its garden. The bee has lost its voice. I dream an early autumn wind blows the leaves from the tree, and my husband wakes with the smell of iron in his nose instead of earth. Thank you. So one last bit of poetry before I read my final poem. It's Beauty, so it's the second part of the Beauty and the Beast poem, and it's not the beginning, just the middle. The rumors followed us as easily as if you murdered me every night. Hemlock in my evening wine, a loosened banister on the stair. The dull villagers and daft princes waited still and at distances for grave news, and relentless, until I could only point again at their jealous eyes and whisper, I had discovered why you handled me as though I were made of glass. James also thanks you. Okay, so this is my final poem. This is called What the Huntsman Did. Thank you very much for listening. This is my first time featuring, and I've been incredibly nervous. Spade hands pry weed from bone, crush, yank. Earthworm veins dangling from my heart like roots, your nails caked with blood. We are not made for repotting. This ground will not hold me. I cannot see what clicks on ice in search of leaf or blade, slow movement of the cautious and discouraged. But they will not endure. Nothing survives winter. I lay on my side and listen to the hush of dirt spill from my chest as tears grate against your cheek and freeze upon my brow.